Yeah, so we've begun recording. Now we can begin without any delay. And we want to be as brief as possible. In any case, our topic today is not one that requires a very long time. Now, let me begin by sharing our slides. So today we're looking at definitions and their problems. In our last class, I had told you that our focus today will be about definitions. And so let's begin the topic right away. Definitions, definition of definitions. What is a definition? Now, definitions are statements that are used to convey information about the meaning of words. So really the job of definitions is to provide information about meaning. I had mentioned that in our last class. Now, being accurate about the meaning of things is essential in critical thinking. I had also commented on that. You know, I was explaining that when you're engaged in critical thinking and when you are reasoning about anything at all, you first of all need to be accurate in in your conception of things, in your grasp of the meaning of things. If that one is not secure, then your entire reasoning process or arguments are not really based on the right foundation. So accurate meanings are very essential for critical thinking. You know. Okay. So now there are some clarifications we need to make. The first one is that we need to distinguish between two parts of a sentence, any sentence that performs the functions of a definition. The first part is what we call the definiendum. And then the second part is the one we call the definiens. So every definition has two parts. We have the definiendum and the definiens. Definiendum is the word or phrase to be defined. You know, when we were doing our English grammar in secondary school, we had distinguished between subject and predicate. So in this case of definitions, the definiendum is, you know, doing a work that is analogous to that of the subject. The definiendum is a word or phrase to be defined. And then the definiens refers to the rest of the sentence, which does the defining. So for instance, in the definition, cat is a large, long-necked, ungulate mammal. The definiendum will be cat. And then the definiens will be is a large, long-necked, ungulate mammal. So the definiendum is analogous to the subject, whereas the definiens is somehow similar to the predicate in English grammar. You know? Okay. Now, based on that distinction, let's begin to look at types of definitions. First of all, we have lexical definitions, which we also call dictionary definitions. Now, for example, when you open your dictionary, you will find something like this. A lizard means any of numerous small scaly reptiles, typically having a moderately elongated body, a tapering tail, and two pairs of legs held outwardly from the body, comprising mostly terrestrial and growing species. So this sentence is a definition. What does this sentence do? The sentence provides information about the meaning of something. In this case, lizard. So, and then this is a lexical definition. Now let's look at ostensible definitions. An ostensible definition is a non-verbal way of conveying the meaning of a word by pointing to the actual object or demonstrating the meaning of the word in real life situations. So for to define something ostensively is to define it not by using words. It is to define it by demonstrating with action what something means. There are some things in life we cannot define with words. For example, color. Color words such as yellow, green, red, blue, and so on, they can't be defined descriptively. They can only be defined ostensibly. You know. And even certain styles of dance, for instance. If you want to define certain styles of dance, such as Adua, Azuntu, and the rest, I don't know how you would use words to define or describe such kinds of dancing. You would better need to do that by demonstrating it. Such definitions are called ostensive definitions. Then we have the theoretical definitions. The theoretical definitions are those that originated from specific disciplines. So we have definitions that we have some definitions that originated from one discipline or the other. Example of words with theoretical definitions include inflation. We know that the word inflation came to us from economics. Then we have bipolar disorder. We have viral load. So these are words, that came to us from specific disciplines, and so we got their definitions from those disciplines because it was in those places that they were created. For example, viral load can be defined as the numeral expression of the quantity of virus in a given volume of fluid. So that's a theoretical definition. Then we have stipulative definition. We use stipulative definitions when we assign a meaning to a word, either for the first time or for a specific project. Stipulative definition is the kind of definition we formulate for the first time or for a certain project. So for example, the Ghanaian word frenemy means a person who is an enemy pretending to be a friend, or someone who is a friend but also a rival or an opponent. So you can say that that's a stipulative definition. It might not exist in the dictionary, or it has not been an established word in the English lexicon, but it has somehow emerged, as a stipulative definition because probably there is no definition for that kind of person in the dictionary, or probably a word for that kind of person has not been existing in the English language. So, people somewhere around the world decided to stipulate a word, a definition for that kind of person. So that's what a stipulative definition means. It's a definition we assign to something either for the first time or for a specific project. Now, for another example, let's assume you are doing a project, an academic project, a thesis, or in school, maybe in your final year, and you are doing some research, and then you encountered something. You encountered something, and you went to the dictionary to check whatever it is. And the dictionary definition does not satisfy what you see about it. Maybe you are doing a research on income, people's income, and you went to the village to do a research about the income of the villagers. And then you see that most people in the village earn their income either farming or trading, or doing some of these small jobs or the other. But when you open your dictionary and you check the word income, so let's assume that maybe you check your dictionary and you see that the dictionary defines income as as something like salary. Let's suppose it defines income as salary, for instance. And then you see that that definition does not really suit, it does not fit what you found out in the villagers, because the villagers are not civil servants, they are not earning salaries. Their incomes are, are more informal. So for the purpose of that project, you decide to disagree with the dictionary definition, and then you come up with a definition that satisfies or at least extends to what you have noticed in your project. So the kind of definition you are creating in that project of income is a stipulative definition. So that's what we call stipulative definition. Then you have operational definition. Operational definition is defining a term by describing a set of actions or operations that, when accomplished, will determine the entity referred to by the term. So operational definition is to define something by enumerating a set of actions or procedures by which that particular thing is realized. So let me go back and mute everyone. Okay, so I've muted everyone. And please, if I have muted you, don't unmute yourself until it's time for questions. So an operational definition is describing something, defining something by describing a set of actions or operations or procedures by which such a thing is realized. This is the kind of definition we see in the sciences most of the time, because certain things are arrived at by scientific experiments, operations. For example, a solution is an acid if and only if litmus paper turns red when dipped into it. A solution is an acid if and only if litmus paper turns red when dipped into it. So that's a typical example of an operational definition. Such a definition shows you a certain step or operation or action that needs to be taken to realize such a thing, or to realize the definition. A substance is translucent if and only if, when held up to a strong light, some of the lights come through. So these are operational definitions. And so you see them mostly in the sciences. Although you could also see them outside the sciences, provided it fits the type of definition in question.
These people now, why they can't? Oh, Charlie. What
Yes. I mute everyone. Yes, I mute everyone from time to time. There's this mute all button. So I go there and press it from time to time. That's fine. So still an operational definition. Note that an operational definition must specify an operation. For instance, the definition a solution is an acid if and only if it has pH of less than 7 is correct. But it is not an operational definition because it doesn't outline an operation or a procedure. You understand this? An operational definition must specify an operation. The definition a solution is an acid if and only if it has a pH of less than 7. It looks like an operational definition, but it is not. Because what it is outlining is not an operation, it's a condition. Okay. Then we have essential, or what we call the real definition. An essential or real definition is the only definition that captures the necessary and sufficient conditions for the definiendum. All other definitions are unable to capture the necessary and sufficient conditions for the definiendum. Examples. Now, essential definitions are, you tend to find them mostly in mathematics. For instance, you see some of these examples. A prime number is any number divisible by only itself and 1. An even number is any number divisible by 2. So they are mostly mathematical definitions because of the exactness, because of the standard of accuracy that is demanded of such definitions. Note that we said such definitions must capture the necessary and the sufficient conditions. And so let's see why this is so. When you look at this definition, a prime number is any number divisible by itself or 1. When you take out the definiendum, a prime number, if you took out the definiendum, a prime number, and just let's assume you never saw it, and the only thing you met is any number divisible by only itself and 1, and then you are asked what kind of definiendum would suit these definitions. Automatically, a prime number will come to your mind. But if it is not an essential definition, and you removed the definiendum and you were presented with only the definiens and you never saw the definiendum, and then you are asked what kind of definiendum would be suiting for these definiens. In many cases, you crack your head and the definiendum might not occur to you because the definiens does not satisfy all the necessary and sufficient conditions for the definiendum. So if, for instance, it is a definition that is not an essential one, for instance, a table is an object. Who is making this noise? Okay, let me mute everyone. I can't. Savior Kujo, why is your microphone on? Okay, I've muted him. Okay, so I'm trying to make you understand what distinguishes essential definitions from other definitions. I was saying that for an essential definition, if you take an essential definition and you removed or deleted the definiendum or the subject, for instance, a prime number, and you were presented with only the definiens, and you never saw the definiendum, and then you are asked to supply the definiendum, a definiendum that is befitting or fitting of this definiens. Immediately, a prime number will just occur to you because any number divisible by only itself and 1, you know that it is only prime numbers. So you will not have any difficulty knowing that it is a prime number. But if it is a definition that is not an essential definition, and you are presented with just the definiens without the definiendum, and then you are asked to supply the definiendum, you might be confused because the definiens would not satisfy these necessary and sufficient conditions. For example, if you are presented with definiens, an object with a wooden object with 3 legs. If you are presented with a wooden object with 4 legs, that's a definiens. If you are asked to supply the definiendum of a wooden object with 4 legs, what would be the definiendum?
A table.
A table. See.
A chair.
A chair. Okay. Can two of them fit the definition?
Yes.
Yes.
A table.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So if the two of them are fitting of the definition, then it means that the definitions, I'm coming. I'm just trying to mute everyone. Okay. So if a table and a chair are both befitting of the definitions, then it means that the definitions does not satisfy the necessary and sufficient conditions for a definiendum. It doesn't satisfy the necessary and sufficient conditions of a chair, and it doesn't also satisfy the necessary and sufficient conditions for a table. So in that case, the definition is not an essential definition. If it is going to satisfy the essential and the necessary and sufficient conditions for the definiendum, then it has to be an essential definition. You will realize that whenever you take out the definiendum, you can easily put it back. And the definitions of an essential definition can have only one definiendum. You know, the definitions of an essential definition cannot have more than one definiendum. These two definitions we are looking at in these examples, the prime number is any number divisible by only itself and 1. An even number is any number divisible by 2. Now the two definitions, each of them can only have one definition. That's what makes it an essential or a real definition. So, you can say that this kind of definition, it satisfies all the standards of accuracy, if you may say so. Someone was raising a hand. Who was that? Bernard Boateng.
Sir.
Yeah.
Yes, please. So please, does it mean that the definitions need to be specific in order to get the definiendum?
Yeah, that is that we are saying that it is not in all cases. It is only in the cases of so it is only in the cases of essential definitions. So we are saying that whenever a definiens satisfies the conditions for the definiendum completely, then you have to call that an essential definition. But if it doesn't, then you can't call it an essential definition.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, so the basic distinction is between essential and then non-essential definitions. Now, you can say that the non-essential definitions, we call them essentially contestable definitions. Those definitions that are not essential definitions, they are essentially contestable. You can contest them. If someone says that a chair is a wooden object with 4 legs, you can contest it and say it is stable, not a chair. And then someone else will say, no, it is not a table, it's a chair. And then all of you will continue contesting it. So such definitions are contestable, essentially contestable. So let's go on and do the rest of the. Now, because of the standard of accuracy required of essential definition, you find them mostly in mathematics. It's difficult to get them outside of the mathematical arena, Okay, so a little exercise. Determine the type of definition in each of the following passages. A house means this. Can someone answer that?
It's a rare definition.
A house means this. What is it?
A rare definition.
Rare?
Ostensive definition.
Ostensive? Okay. So it should be ostensive because it wasn't what was seen is discipline is the drawing of a house. We're looking at the image of a house, so it's ostensible. Then the second one, water means a molecule composed of 2 hydrogen atoms bonded to 1 oxygen atom. What is
Essential.
essential?
Operational.
Operational definition.
Operational.
Operational.
Okay, operational. Okay, that's fine. I think that there is a procedure or an operation specified, and that is that you have to bond 2 hydrogen atoms with 1 oxygen atom. So that bonding process, it makes it an operational definition. Then a nuclear family is a living unit composed of a man, woman, and their children.
Essential.
Essential definition.
Essential.
Essential definition.
Essential.
Lexical.
looks-
Lexical definition.
Operational.
Lexical. Lexical.
Lexical
definition.
Stipulative definition.
So, is it operational?
What about theoretical?
Theoretical.
Yeah, because there is a certain discipline that gave us this definiandum. What discipline did it emerge from? Where did we get nuclear family?
Extended family.
I mean, where did we get the term nuclear family from?
Social studies.
Which one?
Social studies.
Social studies.
Social studies.
RME.
What for RME?
What? Someone was raising his hand. Bernard, your hand is still raised, but I'm not sure you are still asking any question.
No, please. No, please.
And Jeffrey Dankwa.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Dankwa.
Yes. The second example, when you also be theoretical, the definition applies.
Okay, wait. Too many microphones are on, so let me mute everyone, and then Jeffrey will open his microphone again. So Jeffrey, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll give the second example about the water definition. Putting it also in sense is a definition that applies to the field of
Jeffrey, your line is breaking. Jeffrey, can you write? Can you type it in the chat? Since your line is not strong, see if you can type it into the chat, and then I'll read it out aloud.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was saying the second definition. Sorry, the second example, which is about the water. Could it also be theoretical, since it's a definition that is found in the discipline of study known as chemistry?
Let me see. Let me go back to the slides and see. Water, theoretical. Yeah, you can call it. Water means a molecule composed of 2 hydrogen atoms. If it is going to be a theoretical definition, then you would have to certify that the term water came from a certain discipline. For it to be a theoretical definition, it means that a certain discipline gave us the term water. But I'm thinking that the term water existed even before all the disciplines. So I think the term water is much older than the various disciplines. So because of that, we would prefer to call it operational, because there's an operation. So even if the term water has existed before the sciences, the scientists used some experiments to specify what it is. So those experiments are operations that make it an operational definition. So instead of theoretical definition, I think it is more accurate to say it's an operational definition. And then some other hands were raised. Chris Annan.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, sir. The example number 2, can it be an essential definition?
Essential. Yeah, for it to be an essential definition, we must have to be sure that it is only water we can create when we bring together 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. So for now, anytime you assemble those things, you get water.
Yes, sir.
But according to the laws of induction, you never know with these experiments. So experiments can continue yielding something for the foreseeable future. Because you don't know what will happen in the future, it's difficult to describe scientific operations as, it's difficult to credit scientific operations with the title of essential definitions. Scientific operations have a weakness that mathematical operations don't have. And that weakness is because that scientific operations are not done with a feeling of complete certainty. There is always this basic uncertainty in science, which makes it difficult to describe their products as things that can be defined essentially. So that's it. It looks like an essential definition, In fact, it is tempting to call it an essential definition because each time you do that, you get water. It's just that theoretically, as a matter of ideology, we don't always take essential definitions there.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right, and then Emma, is that Emma?
It's Emily.
Emily, okay.
Sir, please, what differentiates ethical definition from a lexical definition? Because when I'm looking at the last example, the nuclear family one, I knew about nuclear before we learned social studies, so I don't understand why that one should be a theoretical definition and not some dictionary or something we learned from any other thing apart from, like, I don't know.
Yeah, don't
Please.
worry. I think you are rightly concerned.
Yes.
The point you have raised suggests that certain definitions satisfy 2 or more kinds of definitions. So it is a fact. It is certainly a fact that many of the lexical definitions will also be theoretical definitions. So what it means is that certain definitions actually satisfy 2 or more kinds of definitions, So I think that even essential definitions, you can still get them in the dictionary, So
Yes.
So an essential definition could also happen by chance to be a lexical definition because you open your dictionary and you also see it. And then it could even be a theoretical definition as well because, of course, it came from a certain discipline, which is mathematics. So what it means is that you can find an essential definition that is also a lexical definition, also a theoretical definition. You know, 2 or 3
Yes.
kinds of definitions at the same time.
So how do we answer questions if we are asked to answer just like give only one, like choose just one definition for the sentence? How do we answer since a definition can be for all the others? Like since I don't know if I please how
Yeah.
do we specifically choose just one definition for one term?
Yes. First of all, you are rarely asked such questions, and secondly, whenever an examiner thinks it wise to ask you such questions, normally it will be because the nature of the definition is, suggesting very loudly a certain kind. There are some definitions, and you see, you obviously they are theoretical definitions. If, for instance, an examiner asks you the definition inflation, what kind of definition it is? Is it, uh, the motive behind the question is obviously that the person wants you to answer theoretical definition, because of the disciplinary nature of that word, that definiendo, So sometimes you can clearly see the motives of an examiner in the kind of questions that she could ask. For instance, when she asked you about the definition of a prime number, I don't think she will be expecting you to write lexical definition. When you read in between the lines, you see that the person's motive is for asking that question is the essential definition. So in most cases, when the motive behind the question is for you to specify one or two of the other kinds of definitions, the person hardly expects you to say it is lexical.
Okay,
So,
so just to think critically and understand the motive of the examiner.
yes, that is why I told you that you rarely see such questions. I don't think anybody is going to ask you such question in the first place, because the question is as cheap as the one that you ask primary school pupils.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and then so let's go ahead. I don't think we are done. So let's race to a finish line of this to the end of this slide, and then we can take other questions as well. Problems with definitions. Now, so definitions certainly have problems. Let me see. I have to mute everyone again. So problems with definitions. Definitions can fail to provide accurate meaning in several ways, such as being too narrow, too broad, vague, secular, or begging questions. So certainly definitions do have problems. The question is, what are the problems? And we want to see those problems right now. It is quite exciting to see those problems. When you reflect deeply on those problems, they will really open up your mind on what we've been saying about accuracy in meaning. Your need to be accurate in your grasp of the meaning of things. Before you begin to even reason about them. Okay, so let's see some of the problems. So too broad. A definition can be too broad if the definition refers to objects or properties beyond those needed to define a definition. So if the definition refers to things that are beyond what you need to define the definition, then the definition is too broad. In other words, if the items denoted in the definitions go beyond what is needed to define a definition accurately, then a definition is too broad. For example, a toy is a machine. A toy is a machine. Now, when you look at this example, a toy is a machine. Now, the second part of the sentence is the definitions, but how do you, sorry, excuse me, let me pick this call. Hello, Prof. Oh, good morning, Prof. Yeah. Yes, Prof. I saw it is for 2:30 in the afternoon. Okay, yes, I saw your email. It's for 2:30.
What's number? What's number? Why would you know?
Ah, okay. Yeah, I am. Okay. Let me see. I'm going to. Okay. Yes, I'm going to end my class in about 20 minutes. Then I'll come right away. Oh, okay. All right. Well, okay. So that was a call from the director of Language Center. I had to pick it because he's inviting me over for a short discussion, an urgent discussion right after this class. So we're saying a definition can be too broad. It can be too broad. When the definitions is referring to issues that are not really necessary to define the definiendum. When the definitions is referring to items in the world that go beyond what is being defined. Okay, if you define a toy as a machine, now the problem is that there are many machines that are not toys. So the property machine is too broad to define a toy. You know, the word machine contains a lot of objects that are not toys. So such a definition is too broad. So that's what it means to say a definition is too broad. Okay. Too narrow. The definition can be too narrow if the definition fails to capture the full range of items needed to define a definiendum. So if the things in the world the definition is referring to are not enough to describe the definiendum, then the definition is too narrow. In this case, one realizes that the definition lists fewer items than is denoted by the definiendum. Example, a toy is a tiny car used by infants to play. If you define a toy as a tiny car used by infants to play, now the problem is that there are many toys that are not made in the form of cars or tiny cars. So the property car or the word car, tiny car, is too narrow to define a toy. So this definition is too narrow. There are some toys that are tiny helicopters. There are some toys that are tiny planes, tiny cars, tiny houses, tiny dolls. So defining a toy as a tiny car is a narrow definition. It's a definition that is too narrow. So that's what it means for a definition to be too narrow. Okay, so vagueness. A definition is vague if there is no way of telling what class of things the definition refers. Example of a vague definition. Democracy is a kind of government where there is freedom for all. We're talking about the vagueness of a definition. If there's no way of telling what class of items the definition is referring to. Now, democracy is a kind of government where there's freedom for all. This definition does not clarify who all refers to. When you say all, freedom for all, are you talking about all human beings, all animals, or all birds, crocodiles, and so on? So freedom for all is vague as a definition of democracy. You need to make the definition specific. Ambiguous. A definition can be ambiguous if the definition presents more than one possible meaning of the definiandum. So you can see a definition and you see that you can interpret that definition with two meanings. If that is the case, then that definition is ambiguous. A sentence is ambiguous if it lends itself to more than one distinct interpretation. Examples of ambiguous definitions include faith. When you say that faith is true belief, or a triangle is a figure composed of three straight lines intersecting at three different points in which all the angles are equal to 180, So when you can interpret it in different ways, then especially the word faith. Okay. Now in the first example, true belief could mean either sincere belief or a belief that is not false. True belief could either mean sincere belief or a belief that is not false. So you need a more specific definition of what faith is. In the second example, one wonders if each of the three lines is equal to 180 or a combination of the three lines is equal to 180 degrees. Yeah. Okay, then secularity. A definition is secular if the definiandum appears in the definiant or if the definiandum is cited as part of the definiant. Now, when you are defining a definiandum with a definiandum, then you are committing the mistake we call secularity, the error of secularity. You are cycling the definiandum as the definition of the definiandum. For example, morality is to be morally right. Morality is to be morally right. Now, someone who is looking for the meaning of morality, if you say it means to be morally right, you've not told the person anything new about morality. You just gave the term back to the person. Or metaphysics is a study of metaphysical issues. Or pentagon is a plane figure having the shape of a pentagon. So these are secular definitions. They recycle the word to be defined as the definition of the word. Begging the question. A definition begs the question if the definition is obscure or digresses from providing meaning or does not help in shedding meaning on the definiandum. So if a definition is providing some kind of confusion, if the definition is doing something else apart from providing the meaning of the definiandum, then the definition is begging the question. It is begging the question because it is not doing its work. It's just like if you ask someone a question and then the person tells you something that is not even related to what you asked. Then you tell the person, I beg your pardon. That kind of thing. So when a definition begs the question, is because the definition digressed from being a definition and was doing something else. For example, Jubilee House is the office where every Ghanaian would want to be. Jubilee House is the office where every Ghanaian would want to be. Is that the definition of Jubilee House? So it begs the question as the definition of Jubilee House. The correct definition will be Jubilee House is the name given to the office of the President of Ghana. Okay, so that's what begging the question means. Now, a few exercises. Diagnose the problems with the following definitions. So what problems do you see in these definitions? Number one, a bird is an animal that has wings. Someone. A bird is an animal that has wings.
Too narrow.
Too narrow. Yeah, so why you think it's too narrow?
Yeah, because lots of birds have wings. Hey.
A lot of birds have wings.
Not all animals that are birds that have wings.
Not all animals that are birds have wings.
Yes.
Or is it that not all animals that have wings are birds? Which one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it not all animals that have wings are birds?
Yes.
Okay, but if it is all animals that have wings are not birds, then it means that it should rather be too broad because yeah, because wings is referring to other animals apart from birds. So that means it's too broad. And then okay, so what about the second one? A human being is an animal that has 2 legs.
Too broad.
What is wrong with it? A human being is an animal that has 2 legs. So,
It's too broad.
Too broad.
too broad.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have other animals with 2 legs?
Too broad. Yeah, monkey.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Which ones?
Yeah, it's too narrow.
Animal.
If we have other animals with 2 legs, then it means the definition is too broad.
Yeah, too broad.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir. It's too broad.
Okay, the third one, a
A
bird.
monkey has 2 legs.
Which one?
A monkey.
A monkey has 2 legs. Okay.
No.
No, sir, I think it's too narrow.
Too narrow.
Sir,
Yes.
the confusion was
Okay.
narrow, broad. I'm confused. The narrow, it's confusing me. What is confusing me? Which is which?
Yeah, we need the person who said it's too narrow to tell us why it is too narrow. For it to be too narrow, it means that legs, having 2 legs is not sufficient to tell us
Cover the definition
about a human being.
Yes.
So the person who said it is too narrow.
Sir, please, I'm the one that said it's too narrow.
Okay, so why is it too narrow?
The reason is that if you are saying that human beings are animals that have 2 legs, it means that all other animals that have 2 legs are what, human beings, right?
Human beings.
It means it means it doesn't satisfy the description for human beings. That is why I'm saying it's too narrow.
Okay, for a definition to be too narrow, the definition is specifying something that is not enough to define the definiendum. So, if you have instances of other animals that have 2 legs, apart from human beings, then the definition is too broad. And at the same time, if having 2 legs is not enough to make to be a human being, then it is also too narrow. Sometimes you can get definitions that are too narrow in one sense and too broad in another sense. And so it depends on how the kind of question that you all right, so let's look at the third question. A bird is a feathered animal that can fly. a feathered animal that can fly? Is it too broad, too narrow, or is it vague?
Too narrow.
Too narrow, too narrow, too narrow.
Too narrow.
Too broad.
Too broad.
It's too narrow.
Broad.
Too narrow.
Too broad.
Yeah, in this case, it is
Too
narrow.
broad. Too broad. Too broad.
Yes.
Too broad.
Now, do we have birds that cannot fly?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Ostrich. A chicken is a feathered bird.
Yeah.
Ostrich.
There are poultry birds. There are poultry birds.
Yeah.
Ostrich, penguins.
An ostrich is a bird but cannot fly.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, it's too broad.
Yeah, it's too broad. An ostrich.
Hello. Hello.
Too broad.
Okay, by flying, we normally mean birds that can stay very much in the air. There are certain birds that probably can flap their wings for a few seconds, but they cannot really be airborne. So at the bottom line is that there are certain birds that can really not fly. So that means the definition is too narrow because it doesn't capture, it doesn't capture all it doesn't capture all the qualities of a bird. Yeah, someone raised her hand. Who is that? Benjamin. No, Pamela.
Yes, sir. Sir.
Okay, so our time, we're quickly running out of time. Let's look at philosophy is the study of the works of David Hume. Philosophy is the study of the
too
works.
narrow.
Too narrow.
Says too narrow.
Okay, so it's too narrow because there are other philosophers apart from David Hume. And then a submachine gun is a gun that shoots like a machine. A submachine gun is a gun that shoots like a machine.
Secularity.
It's a secular.
Secularity.
Secularity. Secularity.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it is secular because
so what of
the word machine appears twice, so
why?
It's a candidate for secularity.
Secularity.
And then happiness is an emotion that people generally prefer to sadness. What is that?
Ambiguous.
Happiness is an emotion that people generally prefer to sadness.
Begging the question.
Begging the question, it begs the question. It deviates from trying to define the definition.
Yes.
But let's see if we have other things. So I think I have to stop now because of the meeting I have with the director of Language Center. And so
Okay,
I don't really know how many questions.
Sir, please, can you show the slides on the vague?
The slides. Let me see. You need to show the slides again or to post them
online.
Please post them on
Please show the vague side right
Sir,
now.
Sakai, sir, post them.
It's on Sakai.
Sir, Sakai, post them.
Okay, it's fine. I'll post it. But remember to buy your textbooks because some of you, regard the slides as the alternative to a textbook instead of.
Okay, sir.
Instead of
Sir, please, where can we get a textbook?
Yeah, come to the philosophy department for the textbook.
Okay, thank you.
Or if you are close to the university main gate, you can also check the faculty of the School of Arts. That one is by the main gate, Okay, so I think it's 30 CDs also. It should be 30 CDs. All right. So
I heard it's 45 Ghana cedis.
Yeah, 30 Ghana cedis. So it's fine. So you come for the textbook so that you can do all the exercises. Remember, the slides don't really have exercises. What you see in the slides are just maybe 1, 2, or 3 exercises. That's not. You go to the textbook so that you can do up to 100 exercises.
Okay, sir.
And then you get familiar. Without that, you might not be able to withstand the rigors of the examination.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so I don't want you to record very poor marks. Okay, so I'm running.
Please, I don't know the.
Please, sir, what do you say we can get the textbook?
Some of us
To
came
the
late.
philosophy department. Come to the philosophy department. So I'm going to end the class. I'll see you on Friday and Saturday.
So when is Friday? Okay.
Yeah, Friday.
Bye bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having a class.
God bless you.
All right.
Bibini.
Take care.
Black people
Classes.
there.